Hello everyone, my name is Josh and this is WHIMS Scream Industry Musings, and today I'm going to be talking about Scream 6, and because it's a more recent release that I'm going to be talking about on this particular video, I would actually caution a lot of people that there will be heavy spoilers for Scream 6 in this particular video, so if you don't want to be spoiled and you're a huge fan of Scream, then please click off this video right now and then go and watch the film at your local cinemas and or wait until it comes out on Paramount Plus in order to see the film for what it is, for its full glory. So instead of actually going through a breakdown of the plot or analysis of the characters or what have you, I'm going to talk about the things that I liked about this film, because I did really enjoy this film overall, and I really did feel like it was an entertaining experience, and it really had a lot of great moments that I genuinely did enjoy. So instead of just going beat by beat for various different story elements, I'm going to talk about the things that I liked, and I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I had problems with. So first of all, let's talk about the things that I liked about Scream 6. First of all, the location change. The fact that there is now a new location and we're no longer in Woodsboro. We're no longer, bogged down by being in Woodsboro or being a part of that, close-knit community of people who are harassed by the Ghostface killer. It feels very refreshing to see that they're now in different territories, that they're now in things like, New York or what have you. They're no longer, just obliged to have it be set in Woodsboro. It's kind of like with Halloween in Haddonfield. The fact that there are some aspects, there are some elements of the fandom that might say, it needs to take place in Haddonfield because that's Michael Myers' home, but they don't always need to be set in Haddonfield. It's that kind of effect for me where it doesn't always have to be set there. So to me, setting it in New York is a very interesting idea because there's a lot of great, thrillers, lots of great, horror films that have been set in New York, and this one is particularly set around New York during Halloween time, where there's going to be a lot of people in costumes and a lot of people playing dress up, and including playing dress up in the Ghostface outfit. So this adds a certain level of suspense to proceedings, and it really gives the characters in the story a lot more of something to worry about, because you don't know whether this person is in fact the real deal or whether they're just someone cosplaying in a Ghostface outfit. So that really adds certain levels of tension to the entire story. Another thing I liked, which a lot of fans may not be entirely a fan of, I like the fact that Sydney isn't in this one. Even though Sydney is a great character, she is literally the Scream Queen of the entire Scream franchise. She is literally a very big part of this franchise, and having her not be in it could be a massive drawback for a lot of fans. But I feel like this is the filmmakers making a statement and saying we're no longer following Sydney because her story was done. And I would even go so far as to say that her story was done at the end of Scream 3, and it really had a great bookend and a really great ending to it. So the fact that she came back in both Scream 4 and Scream 5 really felt kind of unnecessary because her story was already over. But part of me feels like it's good that they finally took that leap of faith and said, what, we're not going to have her in this one. She's had her story. She's done. She's not the focus anymore. And that was very brave. And I really did feel like that was a great choice. Another thing that I liked was that the Core 4, as they're known as they're self-proclaimed by Chad, they are very much more fleshed out in this version. They have a lot more character development. They have a lot more moments to shine. And I feel like this particular installment really did a good job of really kind of fleshing out their relationship and how they kind of, see each other and how they look at each other. We get more insight into the relationship of Samantha and Tara, and especially from Tara's relationship, the fact that she's basically got to live with this horrible information that her sister could be the offspring of a serial killer. But then we've also got other things going on, like there's a love story between Chad and Tara, which I didn't see coming, which I really liked. And I really liked that whole thing. And I like the fact that, every character gets a chance to shine in this story particularly. And I also like the fact that, there's the hint that there could be multiple Ghostfaces. There isn't, that sense of, we just need to have two killers every time, or we just need to have one killer to make it more interesting. So that I thought was very compellingly done, and I felt like that was a great way of really changing up the story and making it more fresh for a lot of people. And I also like the fact that the opening kill is a bit of a misdirect. It really does kind of make you think, oh, okay, it's going to be a very stereotypical Scream kill where someone answers the phone and then they get harassed with this, video caller. But here it's an escalation where it starts to go, okay, we have someone who's in a public place, they're going on a date, they haven't seen this one. It's kind of like one of those Tinder dates where you kind of, you swipe left or you swipe right for acceptance, and then you basically message them back and forth, arrange to meet, go on a date, and then they show up. So it's like a little hookup kind of thing. But in this case, it very slowly starts to build. Like, first of all, it's this person on the phone to their date, and it starts off very interesting, but then it very slowly starts to become a matter of okay, this is starting to get very creepy and very weird, and then it very slowly starts to build and build and build until that final pitch perfect moment where the boyfriend's voice turns into the Ghostface voice. And then not only does that happen, but also we get a very horrific death scene coupled with a lingering shot on Ghostface, and we get something which is actually quite a shocking moment, which is we get to see Ghostface unmasked, and we get to see him, clean up after himself, dispose of the evidence to show that he was there, and go back to his dorm and watch a film. But it's not only the fact that we get to see Ghostface do this stuff, but we get to see that this is a Ghostface who knows the main protagonists, he knows Tara, he knows her classmates, so he could very easily be stalking her and making sure that he fulfills some kind of dark deed of trying to kill every one of the last Woodsboro survivors. But then another Ghostface enters the chat, so to speak, and then he ends up killing this Ghostface who's just committed a murder himself. And it really does add layers, and it really does immediately set into motion this idea that there's multiple killers. There isn't just two or, one killer. There's an entire sect, possibly, of killers, which is the hint that the shrine gives you, which is the idea that, multiple people have adopted the Ghostface mantle, and they're now planning on doing their own kind of, medley or homage to the Scream films of the past. And that I thought was very compelling. Now let's get on to, and I like the fact, one thing that I want to say before I move on, I like the fact that, it delves more into the relationship between the Carpenter sisters. Tara, played by Jenna Ortega, is basically feeling suffocated by Sam and the fact that she has this very messed up family history. And it feels like it's kind of weighing her down and weighing down her options. And she feels like she's living in the shadow of Sam Carpenter. And I really do like the fact that really kind of creates a immediate tension and immediate conflict between these two characters. And it really does feel refreshing to see that there's a sibling dynamic in the Scream franchise. It really adds so much more heart to the Scream franchise than what would have originally been there. Yes, we love Sydney, and we love the fact that her journey and her trying to have a normal life is a part of the appeal of the Scream films, but also the fact that they've changed it up and they've made it about siblings really adds a certain level of connectivity and solidarity, I suppose you could say. And the fact that they have this message about when family kicks you to the curb, you can make your own family kind of thing. It really adds a certain level of heart and optimism where there can apparently be none from trauma and all sorts of other things and all sorts of other rubbish that undercuts these kinds of relationships. But I do feel like this film does have some flaws, and I will be referencing that in due course. And I think one of my big problems with this film is the inclusion of Gale and Kirby. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Kirby as a character, so having her come back was just like, oh well, like she's come back. It's good to see Hayden Panettiere back, but I kind of found myself thinking she's not needed in this film. Yes, it's nice to see a character that supposedly died come back and become a much more bigger fixture in the main group. That is an interesting idea, but I kind of found myself thinking, was it really necessary? Because she doesn't really add anything to the overall story, and I feel like it really doesn't add all that much. There is a scene between her and Mindy talking about horror films, which I hated, like Best Friday the 13th, the first one, on Best Nightmare Friday the 13th. Mindy says, "Oh, it's the second one." Really, Mindy? Like that's your favorite Friday the 13th film? No love for um the third one, or Jason Lives. I think that's part 6. There's no love for Jason Lives apparently in the horror film community. Shame on you. Call yourselves horror fans. Yeah, but I really didn't like that scene. And also they said, what's the best version of the Candyman? And they both say in unison, both. And I thought, okay, first of all, you guys have cheated. You've actually said, instead of choosing one or the other quickly, quick fire, they choose both, which is a cheat. You can't choose both. You have to choose either one or the other. And to me, if anyone asked me that question, I would always say the 1992 film, because that has Tony Todd, and he is by far the definitive Candyman to me. So yeah, I did kind of crap on the remake, but I do feel like it does have some good messaging, and it does try to say something very important about the times we live in, especially in America, when it comes to racism and police brutality and the abuse of power in certain institutions and class and things like that. But I do feel like it handles it a little bit too heavy-handedly, to the point where it comes across as very over the top. But I do feel like it still has something good to say. It just kind of lays it on a bit too thick. But I will always say, when it comes to an argument of that, which one's better, the requel or the original, I'll always say the original, because it has Tony Todd in it, and Tony Todd as the Candyman is iconic. So yeah, that to me is always important. But I really didn't like that entire conversation. It felt very kind of fan servicey, and it didn't really add anything to me. It was just like, oh, this is a quirky sequence, and I have to say, Mindy is probably my least favorite character out of the core 4, because she just feels like a Stan. She kind of just feels like a Randy replacement, and she doesn't really add anything to the story. She basically just says things that Randy would have said if he was there, and it just kind of feels really annoying. At least with Randy, he has a charm to his irritating tendencies, his talking about film logic and film lore and things like that. It really adds a certain level of charm to his character. But he's also a really good detective as well. Like, he calls out the main killers in such a very good way, and he literally is so good at it. And I kind of found myself thinking, Mindy pales in comparison to him, because she gets the killers wrong not once but twice, and it really kind of makes you think, well, you're a crap detective. You're nothing like your uncle, are you? You try, but you're just a pet imitation. But yeah, I'm not a fan of her character, and there was one scene that really bugged me in the film, which is towards the end, where she's supposedly stabbed in a very near fatal way. Like, she gets stabbed twice in the gut by a buck-one hunting knife, which is a very huge knife, very sharp, and she gets stabbed twice in the gut. So she should be in a very critical condition, but she just runs up out of nowhere, supposedly high on morphine, and she literally runs up. She literally does the Phoebe run in Friends. Like, she runs up, and I'm just thinking to myself, you clearly didn't suffer a near fatal injury. You're acting like you've just run the marathon or something like that, or you're just about to run the marathon or something like that. Like, yeah, she's my least favorite character in the entire film. In fact, if she died in the next film, I wouldn't be crying about it. Like, I'd be like going, thank goodness she's gone. But yeah, that was one thing that really annoyed me. There's only room for one film fan, and I think if they could bring back Randy somehow, I'd happily indulge that. But as of yet, nothing like that is able to transpire. So we're stuck with Mindy for now. Oh well. But yeah, I'd be a good Ghostface, wouldn't I? Like, if that entire sequence is just me being Ghostface right there. Like, you can't choose both. You have to choose one or the other, kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really don't like. But yeah, I think this film's good overall. But I will address one really big issue that I had with this film. Well, actually, two. I think one of my big issues is that Gale Weathers in this film is a field reporter again. But not only that, in the fifth film, she makes it very clear that she feels very guilty for having written the book, the initial Woodsboro Murders books, that actually inspired Billy Loomis and Stu Macher to go on this killing spree in the first film. And she actually feels guilty about it. And she says at the very end, like, she's not going to write about the new murders. The Richie and Amber can die in infamy. And that's something that, she kind of rests with, and she kind of just decides to opt to write about Dewey. But in the next film, she immediately, goes back to writing about the Woodsboro murders and immediately gets punched in the face by Tara. And I'm thinking, well, what did you expect, Gail? Because honestly, she doesn't learn a thing throughout the entirety of this franchise. That she continues to still write about people, she still continues to make enemies, and she still continues to do very reckless things. But what's very frustrating about Gail is she is a very good investigative journalist. She can get stuff done. She was the one who uncovered the shrine to Ghostface. So there's little things that she does here. Kirby, for all I care, she was useless in the entire film. She added nothing to the story. You could have had her be a random informant and nothing would have changed. So she doesn't really add anything to the story. Yes, she could be a fan favorite character, but as far as I'm concerned, she doesn't add anything to the story. She could have been cut out, and we would have very easily gotten the same series of circumstance, and it would have worked. So to me, I'm not a huge fan of Kirby coming back because she doesn't add anything. It's like bringing Sydney back, and she doesn't add anything to the story. That's the frustrating thing, except, Sydney does add stuff. She does have a role in the fifth film, so it makes sense. And she does have a role in the fourth film, so it makes sense. But with characters being brought back just for the sake of it, it really is frustrating. And I think both Kirby and Gale are kind of in the same boat, in the sense that they're legacy characters who are just kind of brought back for fanfare, and they don't really add anything to the story. They don't really contribute anything aside from the movie trivia scene between Kirby and Mindy, which I didn't like anyway, so why include that? But yeah, that was one of the things that I really found frustrating. And yeah, that's all I have to really say about Scream 6. And I just really think this film is really good. There are areas of improvement that can be given detail, but I think what's really interesting is that it is a good step in the right direction. I feel like the fifth one did that very well, but then the sixth film created another host of problems, but it was able to overcome it by taking it a step further, making it bigger, making it better, and then just adding so much more character development and so much more depth to the characters that we've gotten to know, that we were introduced to in the fifth film, and now we're starting to see more of in this new cycle of Scream in this new cycle of Scream films. So I really do appreciate what this film kind of represented in terms of a new direction for the franchise. So yeah, I was actually very pleased with it, and that's my review for Scream 6. And before I sign off on this particular video, I wanted to basically talk about my theatre experience. And I am in a wheelchair, I'm disabled, I have cerebral palsy, so when I go to the cinema, I have to go knowing that there is a lift working at View. Any of the views that I'm going to, whether it's Valley Park or whether it's Grant's, which is my local cinema, I have to know on the website ahead of time that the lifts are working. But sadly, I didn't know whether the message that the lifts weren't working were in fact a new message, or no one had changed the message, because sometimes they do that on these various boards. They sometimes don't change, little notices like that, and they tend to, just leave it up for a while, so you're kind of left thinking, what are we going to do? Is it working? Isn't it working? Kind of thing. So I went to the cinema, and the lifts weren't working because they're undergoing renovations, but they had a sign on the door saying that if you want to get into the cinema, contact head office on the following number. So I dialed the number on my phone, and I said, me and my friend who I'm seeing this film with, Lewis, we are disabled, and he is in a wheelchair and he's unable to use the escalators. Can we get help getting into the cinema? So we were able to get into the cinema, and Lewis actually paid for the tickets, which I thought was very nice, because he said, "Oh well, you paid for the tickets for Cocaine Bear," so I thought, "Oh, well, make it even." And it was actually really nice. We had a nice time. We ended up, going in 8 hours or so early, so we ended up just spending a lot of time talking and chatting and getting to getting to catch up, because it's been a while since we've seen each other last. So we actually ended up talking about a lot of things, and it was a very nice experience. And I really do have to highlight, when we went to go and see Cocaine Bear, there was a moment where it has, before the film starts, it says, enjoy our recliner seats. And I said under my breath, as soon as that was read, rub it in, why don't you? Because we were both in electric wheelchairs and we were both facing next to each other. And he says, "Oh, did you say something?" And I go to him, "It says on the board, remember that notice that says enjoy our recliner seats?" When that popped up, I said, "Oh, rub it in, why don't you?" And then he started pushing buttons, and then he just said, "Speak for yourself." And I had this big smile on my face, and we were both laughing, and I just said, "Oh, screw you." And I knew that was going to be my favourite memory from ever watching a film, just having that moment where he basically just trolls me. I absolutely love Lewis. He's a fantastic guy, and we've been seeing each other a lot, and he's quite special to me. So, Lewis, if you're watching this, I hope you're doing well, and yeah, I really had a good time watching this film. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, even though it does have problems, I do like to hope that this is a good step in the right direction, and I hope and pray that the seventh film takes place in the UK. And Radio Silence, if you happen to be watching this film, if you happen to be watching this review, can you please give me a cameo? If you're planning on sending the core 4 survivors to the UK, I'd happily be a YouTube cameo like Dead Meat in the 5th film. But who knows, it might happen, it might never happen. But yeah, I'd love to be involved. But yeah, if not, then I'll quite happily give a positive review to it anyway. But yeah, that's been my review for Scream 6. Sorry if I wasn't more in depth in regards to various different details about the plot and various different things like that, but I do want to keep it fairly spoiler free, because of course I did divulge a lot of other spoiler related stuff, but I did want to keep it fairly light, because there are probably going to be a lot of people who watch this who probably don't care for the twists and turns. But then I do want to give something for you guys to watch, and give a little bit of depth in regards to what's going on. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you're all having a very good day. This has been Josh of WHIMS Scream and Interesting Musings. Take care, bye for now.